We're back. We're here with Ken LeFebvre. He is Chelmsford Board of Selectmen. Are you the clerk?
I am the clerk.
Wow. Well, we appreciate having you on. You haven't been on Town Talk in a little while, so we figured we'd have you back on. Give us kind of an update as to how things are going with you personally and how you like being on the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, both of you. It's been enjoyable. It's been a learning curve. And there's, you sort of have to sit back and watch for a little while just to understand the process, the personalities, and so forth. But I think we got a lot of good stuff going on. We've made some big strides. We're getting ready for town meeting. I think tonight we'll be looking at the warrants that are going to be put before us. So that's good.
I think you get some interesting warrants coming up on the books here, to be honest with you.
I shouldn't have opened that can of worms.
Well, we've talked about it pretty extensively on the radio, but I know you guys are going to be looking at some zoning articles in regards to marijuana facilities here locally. Was that something that stemmed from the Board of Selectmen, or how did that come about?
It's funny, we were just talking about that. So you can see, whenever a warrant is listed, who I guess, it's attributed to. And so the first warrant that has to do with marijuana, it's Board of Selectmen. The second one is Board of Selectmen, but the third one, which has to do with putting a moratorium on it, is the Planning Board. I'm not sure how that originated from the Board of Selectmen, though.
Well, it kind of seems like you guys have covered all the bases. It's like, if not no, then hold out is kind of the third option, or fourth option is just kind of let it do its thing.
Well, if they don't want to put a permanent moratorium on it, we'll zone it somewhere where it's pretty difficult to build. If that doesn't pass, then let's just wait 6 months to give it time for the court cases to work themselves out.
Well,
so we'll see how that pans out.
I think this has got a lot of articles coming up, right? 31 articals this year?
A lot of articles, yeah.
Okay. Is that going to be 4 meetings, or?
I have no idea. I think the first one's on my wife's birthday, though, so we're going to have to cut that short.
Just make a motion on town meeting floor and we can move on. Well, I do want to talk to you about some bigger stuff. I know that you've been pretty active with the Economic Development Commission as a liaison member from the Board of Selectmen. Is that true?
Yes. Yep.
And some big things have happened. I know that DCU has said they're going to be taking over for Kronos. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. They're taking one of the buildings, bringing in roughly 2,000 employees. I guess it's going to be like a second headquarter for them, so that's exciting. That should get some more car count and foot traffic back on 129, which is, I think, what we need to get other interested parties to look at that area for development.
But that was a big one, right? Because ultimately, if we lost that space and it didn't get filled, then we would be, looking at trying to fill an anchor tenant for some time.
Yeah, for some time, and it's one of the first spots you see when you get off the highway. So it's never a good look when you get off the highway and you see a series of vacant big buildings. So hopefully that goes well. If that, and maybe if we could, maybe find a restaurant or somebody else to open up, then we can. Again, in speaking to a lot of the different parties interested in this, it comes down to foot traffic and car counts. And for all the, the people can comment about there's too much traffic on that road to start with. It's not enough for a lot of serious looks by developers. So I think everything would help just to get that, back revived and alive again for the town. Make it the Golden Triangle again.
Well, I think it's situated well because it's right off the highway on Route 3, so it's got a lot going for it.
Yep.
And I know that there are several buildings up for sale now, so hopefully somebody will make a run at that. And
yeah, 2, 4, and 6 Omniway are now up for sale. And that's almost 19 acres, or almost 20 acres of land, 3 buildings. So that could be a game changer. And we've talked a little bit about maybe a brew pub out there, some type of a brewery/restaurant. That could be a game changer. So there's a lot going on. And hopefully one of the warrants that's coming up is adding a position in the town as an economic development. Well, it's a director of business development is the title they would use. And that would be someone who is more, a forward thinker and a go-getter as opposed to a reactionist. I find a lot of times when I talk to people in this town, they say Chelmsford is always reacting. And so we're trying to change that by getting someone in who could go out and proactively look at what we want on 129. For instance, 246 Omni Way, instead of just sitting back and waiting to see who buys it and what goes in there, if we had that person in place, maybe they could look at it and say, well, what do we need here? And find developers or so forth that might be interested and approach them to say, why don't you come into town? Or put out exactly what we're looking for as a town. And maybe interested parties would come forward based on that. So I think that should help, speed up the process and maybe entice some businesses that wouldn't have thought of Chelmsford, give us a second look. I did have a discussion with Tommy Golden, and we talked about how many little spots are available on 129, because what people don't realize is 71 business owners or 71 landowners out there. It's not like you have one big wide open piece of land and you can sort of do what you want out there. You have to deal with a lot of different owners. Some of the owners aren't located around here. They're big real estate investment firms. So you're dealing with a bunch of moving pieces. So we have a lot of little pieces that we have vacant. And I think that would be really nice for any type of an incubator company. If there are companies coming out of UMass that are startups from their technologies, it's a great place for them to come look at a piece of, maybe 10,000 to 50,000 square feet that they need and sort of start here. If they're successful and grow, great. There's more room, 150,000 square feet's doable out there. But it'd be nice to see if we could get a bunch of, that type of industry into that area. And we have the capacity, the water, water capacity is there, sewer, everything else is there, so it's prime for them to, give us a good look and start filling up the buildings.
It seems like it's been pretty much a team effort between, a lot of the boards and, town management to kind of try to really drive people in there. Do you feel that way, or?
I feel until we were able to get a team effort sort of feeling, we really weren't going anywhere. And it's tough. The planning board's elected, the board of selectmen's elected. We don't want to tick anybody off. But on the flip side, it's made clear to us what the town wants. And so that gives you a little more support. And I think myself personally, I'm going to be more supportive to the planning board. If they are projects that are good and reasonable, I want to stand up and say, I support them. I think the town manager and the assistant manager, Economic Development Commission, they've all been very supportive. And so now it seems like we're all working together towards a common goal, and I think it should be pretty positive. I'm hoping that anybody from outside who's wondering about Chelmsford gets a chance to, take a look and see that, we're now moving in a direction that should benefit everybody.
Now, recently you guys extended the town manager, talking about team players here. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that and what was the, the motivation behind it.
Well, we had, his contract came up at the end of July. We did delay renewing it right away for the sole purpose that we wanted to make sure the contract was still, accurate to mass updates and laws, because it really hadn't been updated since when Paul originally took office, over 11 years ago. So we waited to get the new legal counsel in place. We sent them the contract. They came back with some minor changes, but pretty much they said it was still a standard contract. In the previous meeting, we had offered Paul sort of a bonus if he hit certain goals, and he said no, he didn't feel that was fair. Everybody in town was getting 2%, so we renewed his contract the same way, gave him the 3 years and the 2%. So I'm looking forward to working with Paul. I think he's doing a decent job financially. He manages that money, I think, pretty well, and we'll go from there.
Do you feel like that sets the right tone by taking 2%, where a lot of the negotiations that have happened with other unions have kind of resulted the same way in a 2% raise? Is that?
I don't think it sends a bad tone. I think if Paul wants to say, listen, I'm eating the same meal everybody else is eating, then that's the right message it should send. I don't know. I think all of us, we look at our officials in Washington and everywhere else taking big pay raises and getting, better health insurance and better everything else than us. It sort of sours your taste, but Paul said 2%, and same thing he's serving up to everybody else, so,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your experience so far. I know, you haven't really been on since you've had a chance to really delve into it. Give us a couple of high points that you've enjoyed being Board of Selectmen. I know I see you at a lot of meetings that aren't necessarily selectmen meetings. They're, historic district commissions.
Yeah, too many meetings. No, it's been fun to meet all the people, and I'm blown away by how many great volunteers we have in the town. And for all the committees we have, there's a lot of them. All these people, volunteering the time and effort, and that's, I've been one to say, you really, if you're going to assemble a committee and task them with the job, and they're going to put a lot of work into it, which is what we saw at Friendship Park. It's what we've seen with some of the signage with the Center Village. It's very hard when they do all that work and they're very thorough and they report to you on an ongoing basis, almost too much, weekly, giving you updates, sending you personal emails, explaining their thoughts behind each little detail in their plan. And then they come back, and they have a great idea. I feel almost like obliged that you have to fund it, as long as it's priced correctly. So that's a couple other items, on the town warrant. Roberts Field is the one that I think they've done an incredible job with. They have thought out every aspect of that playground, backwards, forwards, and sideways. Countless site visits, just so many brainstorming sessions. So I really think that's going to be an asset to the town when they're done with it. So that's probably the biggest thing I've seen in the town. It's just I'm blown away by how many people give so much time on these committees.
Well, I can tell you Friendship Park is a very important community park for a lot of residents, because if you go out into that hitching post area, that's actually really one of the community driver points for that from a real estate perspective. So you talk about trying to keep real estate values, stable.
Right.
That's one of them. When people go to move into that area, if you talk about Friendship Park, they have a tendency to buy houses in that area because they recognize the walkability, the ability to bring their kids down to the playground. Certainly, it's just up at actually Varney Park, which they've, improved on up in North Chelmsford. And, I think if they could do something similar over in Friendship Park, that would be, that'd be a big plus for the town. I don't think that would be wasted dollars by any means.
Right, right. No, I agree, and I'm not in walking distance to it, but I took my kids there. It's a 2-minute drive. So I think anytime you get a park like that in town, between that and what you have over at like Hart Pond, I mean, those become such important areas in the town.
Now, what about negotiations, things like that with unions? Has that been pretty fruitful at this point, or?
I haven't really sat through many. I have to step out on the police one because my son's a reserve, and his when he takes details, it's based on 1.5 times the sergeant rate, so I can't be in on the police negotiations. So the only other ones I've heard about, we talked a little bit about the fire departments, but so really nothing to be said on the union negotiations.
Any dog hearings?
No dog hearings, thank goodness.
I figured you would be in on one by this point, but
Yeah.
what about alcohol licenses? I know they talked about expanding for restaurants. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we just got approved for another 10 by the state last week. So that really is going to help. That'll be key with out on 129 and any other areas in the town that are looking to put in a restaurant. Those are, when you say alcohol licenses, those are drink on premise alcohol licenses as opposed to like liquor store. So these are entertainment, I guess, or restaurant type liquor licenses. So we got 10 more of those, so that should help.
I just don't know how a restaurant survives if it doesn't have a liquor license. So, if the town runs out and you go to open not a liquor store, but a
restaurant.
Restaurant,
Right.
and there's no liquor, that's tough, unless you're a breakfast place.
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
then, it might be Bloody Marys. Oh. Well, that'll be good. That'll help the economic, engine, I think, for 129.
Yeah. Speaking of restaurants and liquor, the new establishment up in North Chelmsford just opened. Have you been?
I haven't, but I was thinking about checking it out. and so-
45 TVs. I was just there.
Wow.
I counted them all.
And I heard April's Kitchen is still there as well with their pizza.
Yeah, they have, well, they don't do the big pizza, but they do the 16-inch, I think.
Right.
They kept two of their signature dishes, their haddock and their chicken parm, I think.
That's actually a really interesting building, because I think it's actually the best work, live, play
Yeah,
example you could actually create. I
Yep.
mean, it has an on-site restaurant, it has
Gym.
retail shops, a gym, and it's got some, offices, and
right
it's got
across
a
the street.
residential
Yeah, right across the street
component.
is all residents.
So I look at that as kind of a microcosm in Chelmsford of what, people are always talking about. And those condos are actually really highly sought after a lot of times, because they have that component to them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the bar there that walk over at night to get to eat. So it's one of my favorite bars in town. Not to knock any of the other ones, they're all great. But,
so you give it 2 thumbs up?
I give it 2 thumbs up. We'll see. I mean, it's new. They're still working out the kinks of, I think, the service.
Sometimes that's tough when you're a new restaurant and you open up and everybody comments about it, and so everybody floods into it.
Right.
And you haven't really figured out like the whole kind of routine of things, and then people feel like the service wasn't as good. I've seen that happen to restaurants, and
Exactly.
it doesn't bode well for them. And then they kind of get everything clicking, and it's like, where is everybody? They're not,
But it's funny, everybody's asked me how was the food. I went and I had a bad head cold. I'm just getting over it. I couldn't taste anything. I have no idea. It looked good.
Hey, each their own. Your son is in high school now, playing football? That's
I
right.
have 2, a senior and a freshman.
Wow.
Yep.
How are they doing?
They're doing good. My senior is a wide receiver. The team, the varsity team looks strong. They won the first 2. They beat up Acton Boxborough pretty well, and then they clobbered Western. They lost to Lowell Friday night. And then my younger one is a freshman, and he's a receiver. He's had a pretty good go. Yeah.
And you have 2 others that are older, right?
Yeah.
One's
One
in
at-
college and one's a reserve?
One at URI and one at Endicott.
Okay.
The one at Endicott is a Chelmsford Reserve.
Oh, okay. So he hasn't actually officially graduated yet?
Nope, he's a senior.
Okay.
Coming down the home stretch, finishing up those college payments.
Wow. That's exciting
For
for,
him.
you. How's it been working for you? 4 kids and a selectman position?
Geez, my wife's been fantastic because she promised she would not say a word to me about the late nights or anything else, and she hasn't. So kudos to her. And the kids have been great. Yeah. So I'm not. It's all good.
Well, it seems like you've been doing a pretty good job so far. We know you're running off to the selectmen's meeting now, so we'll let you go. But any other last thoughts you have before we?
No, I just I'm going to probably put a big push on for that economic development position that's going to be on the warrant, the director of business development. Myself and Glenn Diggs have put a lot of effort into it. We worked close with Evan and Paul. So before anybody, puts it out there and says, is this worth it? Just take a good close look at it. I think the benefits outweigh the cost. Unfortunately, we talked to a lot of other economic development people in other towns. You don't see the fruit of this for at least 5 to 10 years. That's the time horizon we're looking at. So it's a long-term position, and we're really just going to hammer away and get the commercial piece fixed back out there, and hopefully that will benefit everybody.
Good for a young guy like me.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you on again soon.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank
Good luck
you.
with your house.
Thank you.